We'll now hear AB 1564 by Williams. And I think you have two other bills as well, AB 2168 and AB 2206.
That's right, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much
Welcome.
for having me this morning. My first bill, 1564, is about emergency response wireless routing optimization. On May 23rd, 2014, a 22-year-old college student embarked on a premeditated murderous rampage in Isla Vista. Emergency dispatchers received dozens of 911 calls, but most of these were routed 40 miles away to Ventura CHP instead of being routed to the first responders that were in Isla Vista or at UCSB. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident, as many non-freeway wireless 911 calls in California are routed to CHP, and delays in response time can result in tragedy. Only about 13 to 17%, it varies on how many cell towers are being built, of the state have ever been statistically optimized until this effort. It is essential that every effort be made to route wireless 911 calls to the most appropriate public safety answering points. In some cases, that is the CHP, but in other cases, that is your local police department or deputy sheriffs. What's worse, test calls show that emergency calls can still be inappropriately routed after they have been reported fixed. This bill requires Cal OES to work with CHP, the public safety answering point, and county coordinators to determine the most efficient routing of wireless 911 calls, and then requires Cal OES to work with cell phone carriers to verify that routing decisions are actually implemented on the ground. In a state dense with freeways and cell phones, improving our state's emergency response system to save precious seconds in response time and therefore lives is imperative. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak in support?
Mr. Chair, members, Chris McKaylee on behalf of the California Ambulance Association in support of the bill.
Mr. Chair and members, Betsy Armstrong on behalf of the EMS Administrators Association in support.
Christina Wojciechowicz on behalf of the County of Santa Barbara Board of Supervisors in support.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Russell Nowak on behalf of the California Fire Chiefs Association and the Fire District Association of California in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Tim Cromartie on behalf of the League of California Cities in support of the bill. The failure to address this problem is going to continue to cost lives.
Thank you. Anyone speaking in opposition on this bill? Yeah, why don't we work to establish a quorum now?
Wesso?
Present?
Wesso here. Morel? Canella? Here. Canella here. Gaines? Hertzberg? Here. Hertzberg here. Hill? Laura? Leyva? McGuire? Here. McGuire here. Pavley? Here. Pavley here. Wolk? Here. Wolk here.
We have a quorum? Okay, anyone in opposition of the bill? Any comments or questions from we have a motion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Due pass to appropriations. Wesso?
Aye.
Wesso I. Morel? Canella? Aye. Canella I. Gaines? Hertzberg? Hill? Laura? Leyva? McGuire? Aye. McGuire I. Pavley? Aye. Pavley I. Wolk? Aye. Wolk I. Needs one more vote. 5-0.
Needs one more vote to get out. We'll hold the roll open for absent members. You're now presenting AB 2168.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Before I begin presentation, I would like to accept the committee amendments noted in the analysis with a small change, which I'll address later. This bill codifies the recommendations in a state auditor's report of the CPUC. These changes protect ratepayers by ensuring that the transactions recorded in balancing accounts are supported by appropriate documentation. The bill also allows the CPUC to develop a risk-based approach to reviewing all balancing accounts. further deletes the requirements that the CPUC furnish reports of its utility inspections and audits to the State Board of Equalization. Finally, the committee's analysis does propose that requiring the CPUC to post reports of inspections and audits on its website and in the annual report of the legislature. What I propose is providing the CPUC with a little flexibility to report in one or the other. I have our sponsor here to testify in support of the measure.
Good morning, Michael Minkus with the California Public Utilities Commission. The commission supported this bill because though the commission has implemented the state auditor's recommendations, putting this requirement in statute will be good for continuity at the commission and good for accountability for future commissions. We urge your support.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition out there in public? Anyone in support? Anyone wish to speak? Sure, I'll entertain a motion if nobody has any questions or comments. We have a motion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Due passes amended to appropriations. Wesso?
Aye.
Wesso, I. Morel? Canella? Aye. Canella, I. Gaines? Hertzberg? Aye. Hertzberg, I. Hill? Lara? Leyva? McGuire? McGuire, I. Pavley? Pavley, I. Wolk? Wolk, I.
Morel, aye.
Morel, I. 7-0. Non-call.
7-0, the bill is out, but we'll hold the roll open for absent members.
Oh, good job.
And then we'll move on to your next bill, AB 2206.
Thank you, Senator and members, Mr. Chair and Senators. I swear I'm not doing a lot of bills. This is just my favorite committee. I would like to begin by accepting the committee amendments to this bill. California uses more than 2 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, per year to generate nearly half of our electricity and a growing share of our transportation fuels. But alternatively, we could produce almost 300 billion cubic feet from organic waste, livestock, agriculture, and forest biomass. California has adopted several policies to promote biogas development, but these policies have achieved mixed results. Recent funding programs are helping to spur new biogas projects, but many of the recent regulatory policies have yet to be implemented or are prohibitively expensive or do not provide enough certainty to attract the investment necessary to expand the biogas market. This is essentially where solar may have been 15 years ago before some of the legislation authored by some of the senators here in this room. AB 2206 highlights what has been a significant challenge to truly decarbonizing the gas sector. Biogas is an underutilized resource, and the market has been slow to develop in California. This bill would direct CARB to exercise existing authority to promote in-state production of renewable gas. Increasing the use of renewable gas will have a substantial impact on greenhouse gas emissions, job creation, and perhaps most significantly, it would strengthen California's energy security. I look forward to working with the Senate chairs, appropriate chairs, on this bill, 2 of which sit on this committee, and respectfully ask for your aye vote. With me today is Julia Levin of the Bioenergy Association, the bill sponsor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We strongly urge the committee to support this bill as a way to reduce landfilling of organic waste, help address the tree mortality crisis, which we now have tens of millions of dead trees that could be converted to biofuels, which are the lowest carbon fuels in existence, to flexible generation renewable power, which is going to be all the more important now that PG&E has announced it's closing the last nuclear power plant in the state. It can produce renewable fuels for heating, cooling, and a renewable source of hydrogen for fuel cells. So we urge the committee to support this bill. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Waste and members of the committee. My name is Ryan Kenny with Clean Energy Renewables. We are the nation's largest provider of renewable natural gas transportation fuel. And the issue here today is that last year we produced over 50 million gallons of the fuel, but all of it was produced outside the state. We have 15 production facilities. We cannot get into the state to produce it. It's just too cost prohibitive. So a bill like this will help move the industry forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Josh Pawnay on behalf of the California Refuse Recycling Council. Some exciting things are going on. There are a lot of our member companies who pick up food waste and green waste, and they're converting that into renewable natural gas. South San Francisco Scavenger to Republic Services, all the way down to the Inland Empire that you'll hear from. So that's an exciting piece. This language will help that effort, so we would applaud you to support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kathy Lynch representing CR&R. We are a recycling company down in Southern California. We have invested heavily in this technology, and we are coming online this year. We are a member of the CRC and the Bioenergy Association, and I applaud Mr. Williams for this effort. This is a critical issue, and having worked with the solar industry back in its origin when net metering came into existence, this is very similar time for this industry. And this is critical to moving the jobs forward. It's critical for the green economy, and it's also critical for the initiatives you've already passed as it relates to diversion of organics from the landfill. So we urge your support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Jason Schmelzer here on behalf of the California chapters of SWANA and strong support. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Bud Beebe. I'm a senior advisor to the California Hydrogen Business Council. The CHBC represents more than 5 dozen businesses operating in the hydrogen economy group. They are established for more than a century in the industry, but in the nascent use of hydrogen made from renewable fuels, we have a lot to do, and we're glad to be able to support, if amended, with our language that's been provided to each of your staffs. We'd be delighted to support this bill if we have that amendment to include renewably produced hydrogen as a part of this bill. We encourage your support of the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Jessica Gauger representing the California Association of Sanitation Agencies and the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts in support. Thank you very much.
Hello, Logan Old, General Manager, Victor Valley Wastewater. Each of us in this room produces quite a bit of biogas on a daily basis. This bill gives us the opportunity to beneficially reuse that, and our facility is one of 3 worldwide that is searching and pursuing net energy neutrality. So it's a very exciting time for this industry, and we appreciate your support.
Anyone in opposition of this bill?
Thank you. Michael Bocadoro on behalf of the Ag Energy Consumers Association. We also work closely with the dairy industry in California and others. And we're back discussing an issue that's been before this committee on at least 2 separate occasions this year. Both times this bill was held in the Senate Appropriations Committee. It's a nearly identical language to what we're considering today. And in fact, we've taken a step backwards because and our primary concern still is related to this slippage into this. You heard a lot of discussion about biomethane and biogas and short-lived climate pollutants. But we've slipped in, again, this language about renewable gas or power to gas. And our concern continues to be that we're putting power to gas on a level playing field with biomethane. And the state's focus in the short term ought to be on landfill gas, dairy biogas, and wastewater biogas, getting it into the pipeline in California. That is what's going to allow us to reduce short-lived climate pollutants. That's what's going to allow what Mr. Lara has been working so hard on over the last couple of years to get further in the state, not renewable gas. And so it's been slipped back in, after it had been taken out by the Allen bill before it was held in Senate Appropriations Committee this year. Our second concern is just kicking all of this authority and the decision-making for these important issues over to the Air Resources Board. We're not sure they're the most qualified agency to be handling energy policy in California, but we're kicking over there. Just an example of the sorts of things they can do. Mandates on businesses to purchase a level of biomethane. Mandates on trucking companies to purchase transportation fuels. There's lots of authority that this bill is now providing, pretty blind authority to the Air Resources Board to be able to adopt some of these positions. And just keep in mind, biomethane by itself is expensive. It's about $15 an MMBTU compared to conventional natural gas, which is trading around $2 an MMBTU today. So even a 10% share of biomethane into the pipeline could cost ratepayers in this state about a 65% increase in costs. And so it's that kind of blind authority with no limitations that we're concerned about. If it was narrowed to biomethane, if some parameters were put on to limit costs, this is a proposal we can get behind. We're very supportive of getting pipeline biomethane or dairy biogas and other biogas into the pipeline. But this bill goes too far, too fast, and I think all the focus is going to be on renewable gas and not on biomethane where it belongs. So those are our concerns. We'll continue to work with the author if the bill moves forward. Sure.
Yes, Senator Gaines.
If I could get some clarification, because you're talking about gases produced through dairy facilities and then also through landfills. So are you concerned about the cost structure that you're selling your gas at currently and what that impact would be as a result of the passage of this bill and implementation?
Yeah, dairies and other food processors in the state that have the ability to produce biogas are also significant natural gas users. And so we want to be very careful as we encourage these policies that we're doing so in a way that doesn't dramatically increase natural gas costs, not just for food processors in the dairy industry, but for other businesses in California. So there's got to be some balance there. And I think the industry's perspective is much different than the folks that are just promoting bioenergy projects. They just want to get paid, and they don't really have any concern about what the implications are for end-use ratepayers. And so that's the big concern.
Who would be in your mind, who would be the regulatory agency if it's not CARB?
These are energy policies, and it should be the Energy Commission or the CPUC, frankly, that's in the lead. The Air Resources Board's not going to be able to implement these policies under any circumstances. If there is some sort of procurement requirement that ARB decided was appropriate, it's still going to be implemented by the Public Utilities Commission. So I'm not sure you're short-circuiting anything. I think you're adding another layer by putting the wrong agency in charge. I also think by putting it over at the PUC, you would be dramatically increasing the ratepayer participation because there are ratepayer interests that are represented there through TURN, ORA, and groups like My Own Ag Energy Consumers. So I think that would be a significant improvement as well, because we're likely to get a much more ratepayer-focused discussion as part of it. So it's not all one-sided about what we can achieve. It's what can we achieve at what cost.
Okay, very well. I'm wondering if Assemblymember Williams could maybe give an explanation. Is there any flexibility in terms of the regulatory aspect through CARB versus another state agency like the Energy Commission?
Well, first of all, I would say that the members of this committee should be aware that I'm very supportive of dairy digester gas. In fact, next week you will see a bill from me that ups the amount of essentially ratepayer subsidy that is made to interconnect biogas from dairies to pipelines. So we are trying on all fronts to promote biogas. I think that their unique quandary is they're not just a producer, but they're a user. So, that's a little bit different than some of the other interests here represented. We are simply trying to find a path that is acceptable to this committee and acceptable to Senate appropriations to be able to promote the use of an underutilized resource that we have in this state. Every bit of our food waste, every bit of our green waste, and every bit of our other waste is potential fuel that we are simply not using because we do not have the right regulatory and incentive structure. And so I would just say that I can only defer the question to what would I'm trying to find out what is acceptable to this committee and to Senate appropriations.
Does it have to go through CARB? Is there any flexibility on that? I'm just curious. It's an agency that I think has tremendous power, does not have has no elected members. And so where's the oversight in terms of implementation of regulation? I've been consistent on my criticism of this, and I know that Senator Pavley has been good in terms of having hearings on a regular basis, but wouldn't this make more sense to go through the Energy Commission?
Senator, the bill does say that the Air Board has to adopt whatever policy or program in coordination with the PUC and the CEC. There's a limiting factor on either the PUC or the CEC as the lead agency. The PUC only has authority over the investor-owned utilities, and the CEC only has regulatory authority over the publicly owned utilities. And so by having the Air Board in the lead but required to coordinate with the other two agencies, there can be that, the benefits of each agency. And by the committee's own analysis, the Air Board already has the authority to do this. So this isn't delegating new authority or open-ended authority to the Air Board. It's telling them to exercise existing authority in a really important area.
Okay, but my concern would be if you had a certain industry that was required to buy a percentage of this gas, which would then drive up their costs of operation. And they have that authority, is my understanding. And please clarify if I'm incorrect there, but could you drive up costs in terms of the purchase of energy as a result of rulemaking by CARB in the implementation of this bill?
Absolutely.
That is a question of debate. I would just argue that the percentage that we are talking about is so small at this point that it is almost inconceivable that, in my view, would affect the totality of the cost of natural gas. Now, additional incentives for production could bring down the cost of renewable gas, and that will obviously have different results for the producers. But that's something that we need as a society.
Well, that's the market working
right?
there. I don't have a problem with
that this industry cannot remain in incubation into perpetuity. We need to get it to a cost structure where it can get competitive with fossil natural gas.
Okay, wonderful. Could I get one more clarification through the vice chair? I saw you nodding your head, so did you have a response? Or
Let us give you the different perspective. Even at the level recognized in the findings in the bill, which is 10%, which I think we'd all agree is a small percentage of the system. 10% at $15 an MMBTU, which is the low price of what biomethane sells for today, the mid price of what it sells for today, would add 65% cost increase to the cost of natural gas to end-use customers, because natural gas is trading at about $2. So it's more than 7.5 times more expensive. And so there is very significant cost concerns associated with this. And that's where, our biggest concern, if there were parameters placed on this, a 2% or a 1% to get started, see what happens before we jump in with both feet with a very significant proposal. And that's what happens when you kick stuff over to the Air Resources Board with no oversight. The other way to handle this is to have the Air Resources Board come back with recommendations to the legislature on how to proceed, so the legislature can balance the cost considerations. Because that's the big issue. It's not, is this a good idea? It is. We're very supportive of what Mr. Williams is trying to do, but not with an open-ended parameter, because that could have huge ratepayer implications. That's sort of the end.
And I would just argue that, first of all, we've gone around on that debate last year with 350. The governor is vehemently opposed, as is the Senate, to requiring CARB to send us regulations for approval. That seems to me that would be dead on arrival, that proposal. The cost scenario that he is articulating is if you took current market rates and just created a direct subsidy, instantaneous right now. That is not what we are proposing. And I would argue it's a little interesting, considering the most expensive of that renewable gas is the ones produced by the dairy digesters.
And just by, let's make that perfectly clear. The most expensive component in this bill is actually the power to gas or renewable gas that's proposed in this bill. Dairy comes in probably at the mid-price point of other bioenergy in the state. The stuff they're adding in that goes beyond biomethane, renewable gas, power to gas, is $25 to $40 an MMBTU. It's been an energy storage. It's not ready for prime time. Why are we forcing them to put it on a level playing field with the good stuff, the stuff that gets us methane reductions? So,
any other questions, Senator Gaines? Senator Pavley.
like to start with, I support actually the opposition and the proponents, because all these kinds of, different kinds of fuels create some important competition in the fuel sector. Right now, we have a monopoly in fuels and creating that competition. I had a question, though, and I'm going to move the bill, but I also am very supportive of renewable methane and in-state production, use of dairies and landfills as a primary contributor to short-lived climate pollutants. And I know there's a conference coming up next week on renewable methane, which could be of interest to anyone in this room. I wanted to just get, for the record, a real simple explanation between the difference between renewable methane and biogas. And then why is the argument on in-state projects not applicable to the biogas? Is there something about that being out-of-state production? I'm very interested in the win-win situation where we're creating competition in the fuel sector that's lower carbon fuel, obviously, but creating jobs in the state to facilitate the production of these fuels, not bring it in pipelines from out of state. So can someone explain to me why? I was just reading the opposition comments as analyzed in the staff report on whether one is more for in-state or whether there's some barriers or obstacles that make biogas not really an in-state production opportunity.
So, Senator, I'll start with the in-state, out-of-state question. I think the intention of the author and the supporters is to promote an industry that provides very specific benefits to California's environment. So, constitutionally, we can't completely exclude out-of-state biogas or biomethane or renewable gas, but the emphasis is meant to be to provide benefits to California's environment by capturing dairy methane, reducing wildfire, reducing landfilling, et cetera. So if that's not clear from the language, I think the author, that's certainly his intention.
I would also argue that the very fact that sitting next to me is clean energy is sort of proof that our rules in the state really promote in-state generation. They have plenty of out-of-state, but our regulatory structure has hassled them into where they realized it would be easier if we can have the right rules in state to build one in state and use in-state renewables.
So I need to hear what that obstacle is for why we can't build in state. Just costs, siting.
I think the biggest obstacle right now is there is no market that's guaranteed for biogas the way that there is for renewable electricity.
Okay, get that, and that's something to work on. I'd like to move the bill just to help us move along.
We'll get that in a second. I kind of skipped over when I got handed the gavel. Folks in opposition?
I stand in rebuttal to these voices of inertia, actually. Bud Beebe with the California Hydrogen Business Council, and as I listen to the voices of inertia talking about costs that they're projecting 10 years forward, it reminds me that if they'd gone back 10 years with those same natural gas prices, they'd have been off by 500, 700%. So volatility in the natural gas thing is something that you haven't reckoned with. And the other thing is, this rhetoric reminds me of where we stood when California was very heroically nearly challenging the electricity industry to increase its renewable energy content. Where were we then? Those photovoltaic prices were huge. And yet, with the encouragement of California, we went forward, and we have photovoltaic prices now that are gorgeous relative to what you have to pay on the retail market. We can have this same kind of revolution in renewable energy gas if we stand with the niche markets that must develop before we can get to scale. It's that scale piece that will change all of these things. The California Hydrogen Business Council supports this bill if amended, as we've suggested with language that's been put before your staffs, and we would thank you very much for passing this bill.
Any other in opposition? And if not, we'll take some questions. There were some more questions.
I just want to correct the record here. It was the German standard of their feed-in tariffs that gave First Solar scale. It was the Chinese when they got turned down after Copenhagen that caused that. If you look at the market prices of what happened in the solar space, we have gotten the benefits, but we certainly didn't drive those numbers in any significant way. It was a global phenomenon.
And to add on to the history story here, 2003, Senator Scheer carried the first RPS bill as a 20% reduction. It was extremely controversial. Every utility company opposed to it. I was in the assembly at the time, brought in to serve as an alternate to cast the deciding vote there. It was that. So fast forward to 33%. Utility sector was all supportive. It was a bipartisan support on the Senate floor, and now we're at 50%. But creating that market and trying to figure out how to do that in the fuel sector is the direction we should be trying to go.
Senator Gaines.
Yes, I would, first of all, I'd like to clarify whether the motion's been accepted or not.
Not yet. We're waiting for your comment.
Because I have a suggestion. I want to throw it out in terms of an amendment to the existing amendment that's been made by the committee, and that would provide discretion to the CEC and require it to coordinate with ARB and the CPUC. So it would change the authority. The authority would be coming from the California Energy Commission, and then it would be coordinating with ARB and CPUC. That seems to me that would provide the right oversight,
Senator
in my
Gaines,
view, versus going through ARB.
I appreciate your willingness to try to look at paths. I do generally have a rule that I try to live by to not accept amendments unless we can analyze the ramifications thereof. In fact, we were, as is being articulated, I think, with the argument between the dairy folks and the hydrogen folks, we are prepared to take the amendment suggested by the hydrogen folks, but we could not before the bill committee deadline. So anything like that would have to be taken as an amendment before appropriations. I'm not prepared to say that that's a workable amendment yet, but I would be happy to analyze that and look at that. Again, people get in trouble in this building when they accept amendments without them being written. So I'm not prepared to take that amendment today.
So, all right, I understand that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay off today. I'll watch the progress and see if it changes or not before it gets to the Senate floor.
Thank you, Senator.
Great.
Thank you for your openness.
We are accepting amendments you had in the committee analysis?
Yes, that's right. We are accepting those amendments.
And then Senator Panadly moved the bill. Ready for a vote.
Do pass as amended to Environmental Quality Committee, Hueso, Morel, Canela, Gaines, Hertzberg, Hill. Hertzberg, I. Hill, Lara, Leyva. Leyva, I. McGuire. McGuire, I. Pavley. Pavley, I. Wolk.
So leave it on call. It needs to know that.
Okay, we're going to leave it on call, leave the rolls open. And then, thank you.
Thank you, Senators.
Thank you. Who's next?
Ms. Obernolte, yeah.
Assemblyman Obernolte. Oh, yeah, we're going to do the,
calendar.
somebody want to make, do I make a motion?
We'll ask Pavley probably will. Just say that we want to take a vote on the